Hey guys, Rex here. Did you know that 75 to 80% of you will turn on people you love when they hold you accountable to stuff that you're not up to standards on? By my records, I've been training for a little while, and I do keep vlogs, right? And in our, for example, our Zulu class, we have pretty stringent standards. People are not aware of what all those standards are. They don't know what the filters are by design. Some of them they do because I tell them because it's important to lesson. But 80%, it's almost 80%. It's like 75 to 80% of people will turn on you like that when you hold them to accountability when they fall short. It is easier for people to accuse you of being the bad guy than it is to admit that they fell short on something. Okay? To admit they didn't turn something in, to admit they made a promise they didn't keep, or things like that. It's way more common for those people to find, then they'll leverage everything, they'll invert it 180 degrees. Everything they were enthusiastic for in the class, they'll invert in their mind and turn it as a weapon on you for bringing up the standards. That's just the math. That's why we have to inventory and assess performance, okay? Like in behavior patterns of people. Did you know that in grade schools, they will keep a permanent record on the kids? And that's just like if the first grade teacher, I mean, consider the first grade teacher, right? Not super advanced like Rambo, Delta Force, like spy type shit. It's the first grade. They keep a record on kids. They put stars behind their name if they do good. They put check marks after their name when they're being little terrorists, right? They do. At least they did when I was in school. But do they do that anymore? I don't think they do. And people that remember that growing up, are they still functioning on a way where they can take criticism? They're really not. Because if you look at the numbers, and you look at major institutions, like even the military now, cannot straight up tell you failed. It's always got to be positive, constructive. We are allergic to any kind of criticism ever. And so the military now can't smack you upside the head and tell you you're terrible, or tell you you're too fat, or tell you you're too slow, or tell you you're too dumb. They can't do it because it hurts people's feelings too much, and we're extremely weak. And so people that might be Gen Xers, might be even baby boomers, might be millennials. Everyone makes fun of the millennials, but they can be Zoomers, all generations. And I've seen it more actually with old guys than with young guys, which is funny because they're the ones that were teaching the young kids on it, right? Everyone makes fun of millennials. Where did they learn that shit from? From their parents. Their parents were the ones that came up with those standards and ideas that made the millennials so damn weak. No standards, no accountability. It's all about self-esteem. You can never do anything wrong. Here's your participation trophy. Who invented that? The millennials were subjected to it, but they did not invent it. Their parents did, and the school teachers did. That was implemented by the people older than the millennials. Did you guys ever think about that one? We do that here. So 75 to 80% of you will turn on people you love, and in 180 degrees, you'll invert, you'll change your course. You'll use everything that you were enthusiastic about in that relationship as a weapon now against them, as ammunition. It's like dudes go through these horrific divorces, and all the good stuff that were the memories are now like the trauma for the wife, or whatever, right? And that's something that happens. Like it was awesome until all of a sudden she decides, they're not getting along, and now like all those things are terrible. Or the dude, right? All the stuff that he loved about his woman are now just like, she's terrible. Like, that's how we're wired. Why? Because our egos are so monstrous. Our egos and our pride are so huge and so monstrous, we can never, ever, ever admit that we might be mistaken, that we might have fallen short, that we might have not lived up to a standard, that we might not have, honored a commitment, right? And so you'll see this in training. So in my experience, in the higher level training courses, 12.5% of people will be cool with correction. Okay? 12%. Only 12% are cool with being corrected, and they will properly own it and then either correct it or admit, hey man, I don't think I can make it. Like, that's cool. That is, so 12% are men. The other 12.5%, okay, that is beyond that, is okay as long as they get to retain some portion of hierarchy, that you let them hang on to something that's connected to their ego. Just let me have something so that I can be around here. If you allow them that, right, then they'll be cool. But the second you take that away, boom, an enemy like that. It's freaking terrifying. Scary, isn't it? This is why children turn against their parents so many times. Parents that have accountability standards, they don't like that. People do not like being accountable. And the parent's job providing accountability and pressure, because they are training the children for life. And you do not have true training until you have both accountability and pressure present. When you do that, it is the nature of accountability and pressure is to be absolutely uncomfortable. To forge and to heat up the steel in the forge enough to where it's pliable so it can be reshaped into a new instrument, a more deadly instrument, a more effective tool. But if you cannot take the heating up process, the metal just is junk metal and it flies apart. It tells you the quality of the metal. We're testing the metal of this guy. What does that mean? You know, there are some steels that if they're not pure and you heat them up, sparks start flying out of them when they hit C1. They're just trash. It just turns into trash. Like, oh man, like this cannot be beaten. This has to be refined and purified in the fire if possible. Sometimes you just junk it. Like, this is a different category. This is the paperweight category steel. Paperweight grade steel, right? And the same is true with men, right? We are so allergic to being corrected because our egos. We grew up in a country where television is king, and everyone is the hero in their own personal reality TV show. Don't tell me that's not true. Everyone who's walking around, all dudes, are dragging around with chains these huge safes full of their ego. And they are absolutely, that's a burden that they're not going to be able to, it makes you immobile. It kills your mobility. It's a mobility kill. To have 800 tons of junk metal you're trying to drag around, your ego, right? You can't move. You cannot learn. You cannot climb a mountain. You cannot take off the ground. The airplane can't take off. I never wanted to be an airplane in the first place. You're the enemy now. Like, dude, I was trying to tell you, like, you know, this or that. So be aware of that. And when you have people that's the way people are, okay? It's just the way they are. It's like 75 to 80% will turn against you for bringing it up. So what's the lesson? Have filters and pre-filters in place before you let them get too close. That's why in Zulu, there are multiple filters within the class. And I have those actually on the expert tier even too. There are guys on the expert tier here on Patreon that have gotten through some of the filters and have full access to certain things that nobody would realize that expert people would have access to. They have personal access on the PMs through me because of their performance, and they've proven through the checkpoints. How do you do that? Well, you got to go through the class, right? Got to go through the Real Dope series and participate. But I am telling you, you have to have filters in place that can identify that before you let them too close. Like if you're just inviting everyone over to your house, right? If you just invite everyone over to, like, all right, guys, I'm Rex. Come over to my house. Let me show you my food preps. We're going to have a prepping club. Check out my food preps, guys. Here's my latest gun. Check out my guns. Here's where I keep them. Hey, guys, Rex here. Like, oofta. If you just let them into your house, now I know I'm on video. It's my job, right? But if you just let them into your house, man, and start showing them all your stuff, and like you have daughters or sons in your house, you know what I mean? What they turn against you, now you have an insider threat problem, right? And so what do you got to do then? Then you're kind of forced to let them keep a remnant of their ego to keep them satisfied. Well, I didn't really want to do that class, Rex. It's stupid. But I'll do this one because I'm really smart and I'm more serious about this stuff. Okay, man, that's cool, right? And that's fine, but you got to be very, very, very careful on who you let in on your inner circles. I am telling you, it is a serious, serious threat. Okay, so people absolutely will turn against you when you just F with them just a little bit, right? So typically there says, how do you check for this? When the opportunity presents itself for you to give honest feedback on something people don't like my bros come over on a regular basis. We have a built into our schedule, regular basis inspection period where we all sit around and we discuss, hey, how's stuff going this good? How's stuff going this bad? And then what do you see? We assess each other honestly. Accountability, right? And so if we have bros or myself included, like Rex, you're kind of hard on me that one time. You have a chance to hash it out. If I can't take any kind of correction, like, yeah, man, I've been tired or whatever. Like, I've been physically exhausted. I'm emotionally exhausted. I apologize for being a hard ass last month. Okay, right? I have to fess up to that. Likewise, if I hit those guys with something and all they're doing is trying to evade it, like, nuh-uh, it was you. They'll project it. They'll deflect it. They'll try to get it back on you somehow. That is exhibiting insider threat behavior traits that are extremely dangerous. People cannot take criticism and they turn it against you. That's extremely dangerous. And hopefully you don't have them on your inner circle yet. If you do, you might have to very cleverly deleverage that situation. Because that's a threat. That's an insider threat. Inside your gates. So what do? You simply, at that point, actually phase in your actual standards. You just phase them in kindly. You don't ever have to call them on it. But you say, okay, well, here we got this new thing, guys. We got this new thing we're going to just start doing all of a sudden. We're going to actually start logging standards. Like, hey, like if you do this, here's what it means to have proper weights and measures, right? Like if so-and-so helps you this much, then you should help this much backwards. Or if so-and-so pays you, then you should pay them equally, right? So if they are notified all of a sudden that there's standards and they come unglued about that or defensive or like, hey man, like our standards is you can only have 12 beers per night. If you have 13, then you're like not meeting our standard. It's too much. Right? Like, oh no, they're on to me, man. Like that, you start phasing them in. If they cannot meet the standards, they're going to self-select and they'll remove themselves from the group. Like, hey man, they'll fade back, which is a good way to do that, right? We want to give them space to try something else. But when it comes to people's personalities and people's natural compunction through their huge, monstrous pride, and I'll tell you what, it's like, I feel kind of like a psychic, but I'm really not. I can read comments, and I can tell you months ahead of time. And Saw is extremely good at this. He's like, that guy right there, watch, he's going to do this. In 3 or 4 comments, he's going to do this. Watch him. He's going to shit the bed. And I'm watching, yep. How did you know, Saw? Yeah, I've been around dudes for a long time. I know what happens when you start to just have a little bit of accountability. Wham, their back cracks. I can't handle it. Not first rodeo, right? So you got to be careful with that. You got to absolutely have standards, right? But, and I'm not trying to be mean, right? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm telling the rest of you, when you have your groups, and it'll always take the form of some kind of superiority, right? It'll be a form of superiority. Like, Rex, actually, you're like bad because like, and they'll position themselves in a way, and you can see the positioning where they start to physically try to evade whatever accountability was like directed. Like, all right, man, here's some accountability. Wait a minute, I'm not standing. You know, Rex, I don't like being around here because like your hair's messy, or Rex, like I think you're out of line on your religious stuff, or I think you're out of line on this. They evaded the accountability and then projected hate back in this direction because they interpreted loving accountability as hate, because their operating system is not of spirit of truth or life. Their operating system is on something else, pride and ego. Lucifer's malfunction. 80% of guys that are through all the, and that's guys that are through my pre-filters of getting even here, will turn on you for that. That should be a lesson to the good ones out there, right? I mean, what's the actual numbers just out in society, right? Do you think of the pre-filters to even be on the main Tiborasaurusrex channel, right? Guys are similarly aligned. They like rifles. They like discipline. They like science. Those are filters right there. They like, they like standards. They don't leave when you bring up like all the, they're tolerate like the good stuff for the most part, right? So most people are cool with the standards, the righteousness, the Bible stuff until our personal pride or ego is tested this much. And the true God, which was hiding so close to the truth, which is that we think we're God, comes out. How dare you insult my God, which is me, my pride and ego. Lucifer's malfunction in the Garden of Eden was that, right? That's the temptation he used. You shall be as gods. He told Eve, you guys want to be like gods? Oh yeah, that's always been the temptation, that we usurp the throne. Rex, when's the abomination of desolation happening? Spoken of by Daniel the prophet. When that man of sin sits in the holy place saying that he is God. How do you know you're not doing that? How do you know you're not sitting in the throne of God as if you think you're God and you make your own rules? And we can test it and see the observable behavior traits with accountability, calling someone out on some minor, tiny little details as a test, right? Like, hey man, like you said you were going to do this. It is now that time. Show me. You told. They could be like, oh dude, I'm sorry, I failed. Like, I will do that right now. I will fix it. Okay. But if you say, you have promised this at this time, show me. You're the enemy. Ooh. Man, I get that. I see it all the time on the training classes where we push the envelope, where we push it, right? So VSL, we're just hanging out, we're having a good time, for the most part. There is absolutely training going on here. You guys might not know. But on the ones that are advertised as training deals, I am telling you, it is not a joke. It is absolutely true. 80% of you will turn against people you love because you will find out that you really believe that you are God. And when they test your authority, or, when they try to have accountability with something you're doing, this, we all do stuff that's out of whack. And you check their accountability, right? You check for that, and they come unglued and they direct it at you. That is a giant red flag. Red blinking light that when the chips are down, they will turn on you when they're, because they see themselves as their own personal God. And we can say Jesus, we can say Lord, Lord all day long. But when you sit on that throne and steal that throne and commit the abomination of desolation yourself, now I do think that's another deal. It is a whole nother thing on top of that. But what's the one on your personal life level? How can you be mad at the Antichrist when he sits on the throne of God and declares himself to be God? That's terrible, Rex. We'll have to fight him. Yeah, but what about you? What about you sitting on the throne? What about your pride and ego? See, you're worried about Lucifer when he's over there. But when Lucifer is here and your ego is so freaking huge, you can't even get in through the doorway, and it's so big that your ears are closed off and you can't even hear anything anymore, right? There's no way I could possibly not be getting 100% in Rex's class. That's impossible. You know, Rex, this class is really not for me. This is children's level stuff, you know. You gave me a 98%, I got 100 actually. Or worse yet, I give him a 50% or a 25% chance. This is stupid. I only came here to tell people not to be here. Like, it's so obvious from a bird's eye view. It's like, dude, 80%, remember that, 80% of, then that's with pre-filters in place. Many pre-filters in place, high standards to even get to the doorway. 80% of those guys turn on you when you call them out on something. Rex, do you actually have it designed where you'll maybe, you know, if you see any kind of subtle things and you check, do you mess with people to see if they're going to suck? Any good trading will. Absolutely do that. Did you know that's what they made me do when I was private one time? Private Tibor? They would like yell at you and you didn't even do anything. See if you're going to be able to take it, right? Like, hey, but why do I have to do the push-ups? I didn't even do anything. He did it. Yeah, we know. We're trying to train you out of that, right? Funny, right? And 10%, you know, maybe you'd be all right. But what do you do with that other percent that maybe was in the door for too long and they're kind of hanging around? Do you let them just hang around forever? Or do you just finally just like phase them out, right? How do you phase them out? Truth. And you don't have to be ungraceful. You can do, here's the thing. People that have Lucifer as an operating system, that have usurped the throne of God in their own mind, thinking they're God and they're uncorrectable and there's nothing they could ever do that's wrong. The easiest way to get those bastards to leave is to just turn up the volume very slowly on truth in the most graceful way possible. You know why? Because even though it's graceful to Lucifer, he can't stand it. It is not graceful to him because it is the opposite of his operating system. The truth. And the truth is, certain people fail. Certain people do not live up to the standards they committed to. Certain people did not get 100% on the shooting. Certain people freaking totally missed and shot at the wrong target. Certain people did not have their shit together when they came to class. Is that my fault they didn't have their shit together when they came out to the range? Is that Saw's fault? Is Saw mean when some guy like doesn't have his shit together on the range when he shows up at training and gets kicked off the range for not listening? Well, that's kind of harsh. Those guys always turn then. They were super in love with it. They super loved the guys as long as they got to think that they got to sit on their throne the whole time. The second you take them out of that throne and you put God back into the throne and say, you are not qualified to sit in that chair, buddy. That is not for you. And it's not for me either. Man, when our brothers come and get us off of Daddy's chair, we fight like hell. How dare you tell me, why are you in Dad's chair? I'm not in Dad's chair. I'm standing next to it. And if I was, then tell me to get off. That's not our chair. That's his chair, right? They will turn against you. And when they do, that's a red flag. That's like the most obvious huge clue there is. But you simply turn up the volume on truth if you need to phase out these guys, right? And they'll let themselves out the door. Yes, will they go and talk shit? Yeah, probably, because now you are their legitimate enemy. If you are telling the truth in a loving way and people think you're an enemy, what does that tell you about them? If you're telling the truth in a loving way and they think you're the damn enemy because of that, that tells you that they love lies and they want to be God. They sit in the throne of God. How dare you get me out of my rightful throne as my own personal God, and I have my own personal Jesus that I invented because I'm God. And here's the thing, my own personal Jesus. I'm going to do a whole series on that, I think. Because people just imagine who God is. In my own ego and mind will create my own God. What's the proper way this would be done if you read the Bible? Who's the Father and who's the Son, right? So Jesus, and I'm not trying to get into an argument of like, because they are, just stop. Wait a minute. Let's start over, right? Are you claiming to be the Father? I invented Jesus. Are you claiming to be the Father when my own personal Jesus? Boom, down, boom, boom, down, someone to show who cares, or whatever, right? I know Johnny Cash sang that song, but that song is the worst form of Luciferian freaking debauchery that you can come up with. Your own personal Jesus? You created your own version of him? That's not how it works. That is not reality. We must submit ourselves to the actual, real one. Okay? Huge difference. And when we cry and declare war on those people that kick us out of the throne of God because we think we get to create our own standards and that we cannot be held accountable because after all, we're our own God. And you declare war on them, you're showing your true uniform. So that should give you that should make it easier for you good guys out there. And when I say good guys, I mean people that are trying to do what is right, okay? That should make it easier for you guys to just let them go and not feel bad about it. Oh no, I feel bad. Like Lucifer was like in God's chair, but then I like told him to get out. And then like, I like rejected that. And then like, I told him that, oh, I feel bad. I hope Lucifer's not upset with me. Are you freaking kidding me, man? Lucifer is responsible for giant piles of dead bodies since creation. World War I, the freaking Mongols, like Nanking, China, the nuclear bombs, all the disease, all the famine, all the torture, all the stuff that ever happened bad in life, and you feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for him, I kind of had to get him out of the chair, How did so many people in history make such terrible decisions? Because they really believed they could never be wrong. They didn't want to get out of the chair. It was their chair. It's not his. Lucifer always comes with a smiling face as an angel of light, parading in righteousness. Parading. Trying to pretend to be righteous. Claiming hierarchy. Claiming virtue. Lucifer was the light bearer. He always comes like, I'm God. I'm the good guy. What? No. Right? Very, 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 very important lesson to learn. I hope this finds you guys well. And for all of you, and here's the thing. If some of you self-identify like, is that me? Just own it and fix it. We all own it and fix it. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it, 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 own it, fix it, own it, fix it now, fix it. No, I can't fix it. But no, actually you're wrong, Rex. I am right. That's not fixing it. Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. If you guys are digging this content and would like to nerd out even farther, please check out the Patreon page. We have 5 different levels available. The top 2 are actually completely full, but the bottom 3 levels do have some open slots. We cover a variety of content from the good book, music, news, everything in between. Thank you very much to the patrons who are there, and take some time to at least check it out. We have a lot more content on Patreon than we actually have on YouTube.